You are listening to The Critical Social Worker, a revolutionary storytelling podcast. I'm your host, Professor Ace, and with the support of the University of Alaska Fairbanks Department of Social Work, we gather voices of revolutionary social workers from around the world, organizers, healers, artists, and educators, people who carry stories that connect us, challenge us, and remind us what it means to be human. Each episode is an offering, a chance to slow down, listen deeply, and feel the ground beneath your feet. Come as you are, stay as long as you need, and remember, no matter your pain, somebody, somewhere feels the same. Welcome to The Circle. Episode 80 features Natalia Tuipulotu, an LCSW, and someone I'm proud to call Ohana. Natalia and I went to grad school together, and our families are close. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. If you find something meaningful here, the best way that you can support this work is simple. Like, comment, and share the episode, and subscribe to our channels. And if you want to connect, ask questions, or be a part of the conversation, please reach out, because I'd love to hear from you. All right. We're going to do this again. Welcome to another episode of The Critical Social Worker, a revolutionary storytelling podcast. I'm your host, Christian Ace Stetler, and I am joined by my good friend and Ohana, Natalia, and my wife, Alicia, if you can see her or not. How are you doing today, Natalia?
I'm good. It's so funny because we were telling Alicia we were here that whenever I listen to your podcast and you ask people how they're doing, they always say that they're doing good. And I'm always like, what? Who is doing good? Like the world is rough. Everyone I know is struggling. And then I was thinking about it after we were telling Alicia that. And I think people just say that because we're so excited to be on your podcast and to just be talking to you that it just like feels good in this moment. Just be like, oh, I'm good right now. But in general, I'm struggling.
Well, I'm not happy that you're struggling, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But I also think what you're saying is true in the sense of we have this expectation to say that as well in general in society. It's not like it's considered an inconvenience if you say you're not doing good in many spaces, if you know what I mean. You're not allowed to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually I just say I'm all right. But lately I've been saying I'm not good. But I'm really excited to be on your podcast. It's always exciting.
Pleasure to have you. And I just want to
Thanks
say
for having me.
what's up to Jesse, Star, Christy, everybody else that's in the audience. Feel free to chime in, ask any questions, or contribute at any time. Well, Alicia wanted to come on. She was telling me that you all had some conversations previously. You guys are both clinical social workers outside of my realm of expertise. And so I thought we could get it started off in that sense. And I could pass the mic over to you for a little bit and you could get us started in a good way.
Yeah, I think Natalia, we could have just recorded a lot of our conversations that we had over dinner because they were just so interesting. I think a big thing that I took away from it is I'll back up a little bit. I'm hearing from a lot of people while I'm working in community behavioral health that are wanting to leave the community behavioral health field and go into private practice. And I know we had some really good conversations about how it's always all that it seems, and it's not always like the answer to burnout or the answer to this is just going to give me everything that I want um, in the field. And you have so much knowledge. I was trying to convince Natalia to create a course on all the knowledge she has of setting up a private practice. But I just wonder if you could share some of what we were talking about of the realities of leaving like a community behavioral health field and then going into private practice and just what it actually is like.
Yeah. So so what happened to me? So I was on Christian's podcast years ago. We did an episode on burnout because I was super burnout and I had actually taken a month off of work, FMLA, which I think is something that people don't think about doing. I got the idea because my coworker told me she was doing it and I was like, wow, that's a great idea. I worked for a nonprofit, which I think was really supportive in me doing that. And I think that there's like a privilege in doing that in general, right? Like, I think there's a lot of places where people don't feel comfortable taking FMLA off for their mental health to do that. But anyway, that's a different discussion. But anyway, so that's where I was at. I came back to work, burnt out again. So what I did is I started working part-time in community mental health at the nonprofit to kind of take care of myself. And then after doing that for a little bit, I started building my private practice on the side. So I was community mental health part time and then starting to build my private practice on my days off, which I think is something that people don't also tend to think about, right? Like you can have both. You can have that community mental health and then your private practice also. So you have like that kind of like nonprofit pay and like that really fulfilling work, at least for me. And then you're making like that extra income on the side, slowly building your caseload, getting your feet wet, whatever you want to call it, at your own pace, right? Because I think people usually think of going into private practice and it's like you're jumping in and am I going to survive? Am I going to build my caseload? Is this going to be sustainable, right? How am I going to do this? Kind of like, full force. And so I took it slow, right? I had my private practice, I think, for a couple years before I just left community mental health earlier this year. So I think it had been a couple years. And I left because I was burnt out and also because of finances, right? Like I couldn't just be doing this nonprofit work and be adding like a little side hustle here, a little side hustle there. Like it was just too much. I just decided, I think more so financially, I just kind of looked at all the jobs I was doing and private practice was where I was going to make the most money. And so it's been a few months and I was at a community event, a community festival, and I ran into an old coworker. She was actually worked HR in the community mental health organization. It was a nonprofit agency that did many different programs. But I ran into someone that used to work there and I told her, "Hey, I don't work there anymore. I'm fully private practice, and she asked me, "Oh, are you happier?" And I looked at her and I said, "No," of all the burnout that I experienced there, and now I'm private practice. It's been months and I'm absolutely not any happier. I left thinking that I would have, control of my schedule, be working from home, and it has not gotten any better. I'm so lonely working from home all by myself. I'm working with a different population. For me, working in private practice has never been like my goal. It's never really been something I wanted to do. And it was nice for a little bit at first because it was a change and a break. But long term, I miss community mental health. I miss working with that population. I'm having coworkers. I just really miss working with that population. So I feel like I'm just working in a little bubble by myself at home. And I know you work from home as well. But you have coworkers, Christian, you have your students that I know you're very passionate about working about. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's a huge transition. It's such a big transition because I've been working with, I guess, in that community mental health space for like 15 years. And to just like shut the door and just be at home, it's like an identity crisis.
Yep. Yeah, and you kinda
Yeah.
get addicted to, maybe not addicted, but comfortable with that chaos of working in community mental health, right? And then going to private practice is so different. It's okay if I read stars.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real
Mm.
quick before you read Star's comment. Is that the key word to me is community.
Mm.
And it's something like you are not making me do this. This conversation is filling my eyes up with water because feel like it's something I've dealt with so often recently. And it's what I hear from students. It's what I hear from other professors, from my own advisor. It's this idea of community is not valued as much as it used to be in the past. And then this, especially post pandemic world where we're like, you're at home alone while you're talking to people though, it's the lack of community that we need that to me, I always say that, the best, to be our best social workers, we need to be able to thrive ourselves. And if we don't have community, it's nearly impossible to really be thriving without the community. And so, I emphasize it in my classes, but it's not always accepted by the larger in the broader picture, if you know what I mean. Or it's like folks don't get it. And I just know life is hard, and without community, I mean, it's just damn near impossible. And so I just empathize with you so much, Natalia, and I hear it in so many different venues, different people, and we need it. And so I really hope that you're able to find that as you're moving forward, and you always have community with us. We love you, Tui, Mosese, your family, our Ohana. We love you to death. So I know we're a little bit across the ocean, but come see us and we'll come see you. We were just talking about getting over to Honolulu. And actually, we would have bought the tickets, but we forgot we had a dog.
We
So
actually forgot that we had the puppy. Like, oh yeah, it's not that easy anymore. Yeah, yeah, that community. And you make me think about when I was working in dialysis in Honolulu, and there was a lot of it that I did not like, and I couldn't wait to get into therapy. And I think I kind of glamorized it compared to what I was doing. But then comparing it to now, where I am just looking at a computer a lot of the time, to when we were in cubicles all together, going through the chaos together as a community, going through the crappy moments together as a community, that was definitely my favorite job I've ever had when I look back, just because of that community that we built there. So it's huge. But I was gonna read what Star said. She said, "I really appreciate your honesty, holding space for rawness for helpers in the helping field. In my limited experience in the field, it's not uncommon to cross the line into toxic positivity. I think this just perpetuates the idea that clinicians must appear perfect." Yeah, we are definitely
Yeah.
not perfect. And you're always so honest, Natalia. I love that about you.
Yeah. It's a problem sometimes. But you know how you said it's like the almost like it's an addiction to chaos? Like it almost feels like that because yeah, it's like weird because I had being like a social worker is such a part of my identity where it's like I just want to give and like serve these vulnerable communities and I want to be good at it and I identify with it and it's so important to me and it like brings me joy. It's like my hobby. Like I love to do it so much, but to the point where like I give it my all to the point where I don't have energy to give to like my husband and my son when I get home, and that's not fair. Like, and so I try to switch things up and then it's like, and then I just, who am I? Like, what am I doing? I am trying to figure out like, who is Natalia without being a social worker? Like, I just wanna be Natalia, not a social worker, and I don't know who that is,
Yeah,
and it breaks my heart
yeah. And
because
social
I
workers
feel like I've martyred myself.
And I think that's so common in the social work field that we're even expected to do that. And it's kind of like a badge of honor when people get to that point, and it's just messed up.
And from my perspective, social work needs a reckoning in that regard. If that's the way that so many of us are feeling, then what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Social work. What is the point if that's the case? If we're feeling down, if we're feeling depressed, if we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling overburdened, and then in many ways we're not even allowed to express that, or we may come across as a burden ourselves. At least that's how I felt in certain circumstances. You know what I mean? And like I don't know how you feel, but if you're feeling down and you're having a hard day, which I know you do sometimes, you still got to see that next client. And so,
Mhm.
you throw in compassion fatigue and all of that, but you still are obligated to do that. And so, as much as you're hurting, you still have to be that person that's there for the other person that's hurting, whether it's across the desk or across the screen or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that whole part of having not being perfect and having hard days, and put this out there too. I mean, other females, we go through things every single month, and we're expected to be on point every week of that month, and that is very difficult. And to show up in the same way it's against nature, but we're expected to still. And I think that's rough. It is really rough. And I don't know, Natalia, for you, how you do that now in private practice compared to when you were doing that in community mental health. Is that different when you're struggling yourself and you have to show up for people? Do you find that different now compared to before?
Well, it's not a TMI, but I, like, I lost track of my cycle. I can show up in session before I can show up for myself. I lost track of my session for work. I mean, I lost track of my cycle for work.
Right.
Like I can show up better as my Natalia, the social worker, better than I can like Natalia. Like, what day does my cycle start? Like, I just completely lose myself. Like, I can give my energy as Natalia and LCSW more than I can like Natalia. Take care of yourself. 'Cause it's just, like, automatic. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's like it's not okay.
No. No.
It's almost like my survival.
And you do that too, right? You show up for your students a lot of the time, all the time, no matter what.
I struggle showing up for students the way I need to all the time too. I think I do a good job and I have a really good value system to allow me to do that. But there's only so much that could give at some point. I'm behind on grading because it's like I only have so much of me to go around. And I think, add in because you're a mother too, Natalia. So I know you can empathize with this somewhat. But due to the time difference, Alicia's got to be, it's only 7 now, but before the time change, it was so she'd have to be at work at 6 a.m. So that left it to me to like wake up and handle my business at work, but also get the kids ready. And oftentimes I'd find myself like in a class or working with a student or something, and I'm like, why do I feel so bad? And I realized like, dude, you haven't eaten all day long and you haven't even like drinking any water. But I fed
Hmm.
everyone else and
Right.
I'm over here talking story and whatever, but I'm just like, I'm going to lose my mind. And then I feel like there's just an overall lack of, again, empathy and understanding. You're just expected to like follow the script, regardless of whether or not the script is my story or it's not my story, if you know what I mean. And so, although we have different situations in somewhat, Natalia, it's like
Yeah.
just got to keep going. And same with me. I could show up as the professor, but sometimes
Right.
like the way I'm acting in my real life, I'm like, dude, why are you acting this way? And it's because I feel that way sometimes, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
And I don't have the time or the space sometimes to uh to take care of myself. And I've actually set some boundaries recently. I stopped working on the weekends for the most part and things like that. And I emphasized just in the last couple months, I went on this fast and just change the way I was eating a little bit and get in a little bit of exercise, make sure I get a little walk in the morning and stuff like that. And it's helped a lot, but it hasn't resolved anything. It's helped, but it hasn't like been a complete game changer because the script is still the same, even though my story's changed a little bit.
Yeah. And I admire you too so much. I've always admired you and your parenting. But yeah, it's so hard, right? Because we're like showing up for our students, our clients, our children, and then it's like snap, like I didn't feed myself because, the others, right? And what about me? And Alicia, I don't think I fully answered your question, but like, yeah, it's like hard when you're in private practice and like, you know, like if you're sick or not feeling well and it's like you need to take a day off, it's like, well, now I need to like reach out to so many people to tell them I need to cancel or reschedule. And like, what if they don't answer? It's like unless you have someone who has access to like your appointments, you have someone that you've hired who can do that for you, but not me, right? I'm by myself, so that you still have to do some sort of work. Where if you're working like for someone else, you can kind of call in and they can cancel your appointments for you, and that makes it a little bit easier. So there's more responsibility, more reaching out, a little bit more guilt. Oh, I guess there's still guilt when you're working somewhere else. But if you're working somewhere else, you might have a boss. Hopefully, you have a boss who's telling you, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Take the day off. When you're working for yourself, you don't have someone telling you that. You have to tell yourself that. And it's kind of hard if you're not feeling well.
And I know you should speak on this too, because I know you want to take time off sometimes, but you feel obligated to make your appointments and all that. And for me, as a professor, I have a lot of time that I could take off. Like I have boatloads of sick time, like too much that I could ever even use. But if I were to take a day off, I have to, the work doesn't go away. It's still there. And so if I took a day or two off here, well, then say I took Tuesday and Wednesday off. Well, on Thursday, that means I just have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday's work to try to figure out how to make it up. So it doesn't like it's a, damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. But what about you and yeah, I mean, like I said, you're not in private practice, but you still struggle.
Oh, yeah. I really struggle to take a day off. I don't struggle to plan a day off. Like, I can plan it, but if I'm sick, I will try my hardest to go to work because there's just so many people that I feel like, and I think this is my own thing, that rely on me to show up that day, whether it be I have supervisees, I have clients, other stuff that I'm responsible for. And I just, yeah, that weighs on me a lot. And I struggle to think, "Well, I could just relax for a day and take care of myself." No, I'll do it after I take care of everybody else. So, yeah, I struggle with that a lot. And I think in the private practice field, there's also that financial part of it, where if you take a day off when you have an employer and you can take PTO, but in private practice, you're saying, "I'm not gonna get paid for all those appointments." that I was supposed
Right.
to do. That weighs on you too.
Yeah. Assuming you have PTO, like, or if you have, like, decent PTO, that is
Yeah.
nice. My last employer gave generous PTO, so it was usually
Mhm.
good if I needed a day off. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty good support system with I have a best friend that I talk to almost every morning, and so when I'd be
Mhm.
driving to work, we would always, like, check in with each other and kinda talk about, like, our mood or, like, how are we doing this morning and what's our, like, self-care kinda plan for the day kinda thing, and I remember there's mornings where, a couple mornings where I'd talk to her and I'd be like, "Fuck, I don't wanna go to work today, like, I really," and she'd be like, "Don't go to work. Take care of yourself," and thank God for her, and I'd be like, "You know what? I am gonna take care of myself today," and I would not go to work because she gave me that, like, told me to take care of myself. But yeah, that means that you're missing out on money if you're in private practice because 'cause you're fully, self-commission, right?
Mhm.
It's all commission.
Right.
If
And that's
you're
why I just
It's
appreciate you
hard.
sharing the realities of it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do have some people in the chat. Alice said, "The only LCSW I've ever met in person comes to my long-term care facility to see his clients. He works with elders exclusively, but he goes to where they are, so I think he gets more social and community interaction." Yeah, and I think that's what we're talking about, is that community still. And Renee said, "I'm working on that right now." I think when you were talking about the balance, so I can find a balance when I get that job that requires so much of me. Yeah, we have to set the foundation. Christy says, "I was listening to a really great life coach named Jason Wilson. He said he struggled in the same way with giving so much to his clients and not having enough for his family or himself. He said he had to start taking time at the end of every day to release the disappointments of the day through crying or screaming or whatever so that he could rest and reset for the next day." Yeah. It's like energy that builds up through the day.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on that one? So Monica asked Natalia, "Do you feel that your MSW program helped prepare you for the harsh reality of social work? I see a lot of students so excited to make a positive difference in the world, and while self-care is mentioned, we don't get exposed to these type of conversations as much as we should."
I feel like the MSW program and Christian and I went to school together, I think for like a semester or a year. um, it was so long ago. I have the worst memory. It's bad. It was so long ago. I'll say no. Do I remember? I don't remember much. But no, of course not. It was like textbook stuff. I already had experience when I started the MSW program. I had been working at a nonprofit that served youth that were experiencing homelessness. I didn't know what social work was when I worked there, but because I worked there, that's how I picked the social work program for grad school. So I had already gone through burnout at that point. So I had experience before I went in. I was familiar with I had experience before I went in. I don't know if a school can really teach you about burnout, right? Like, I think burnout is like, and burnout prevention is a combination of like you knowing yourself and also like systems, right? Like workplace and supervisors and finances and like your environment and like the world and like I don't know if it's possible not to burn out. I don't know if it's because I'm just having this like really bad, like burnt out, depressed lens view of the world right now. But like, I mean, I live in one of the most expensive places in the country to live. And I was working in a place where everyone that worked with me was really underpaid and exposed to a lot of trauma. My clients were, there's no housing vouchers. There's like, look at our president, the administration, what's going on. I mean, I don't know if it's I don't know. Are there people out there that are just like
Never
loving
getting
life?
burnout.
I don't know. Do you know people?
Well, I think that there are people out there that have kind of forged some kind of different path and found ways to make money. And I can't remember a name, but they have the Social Work Wealth podcast, whatever that is, and they talk a lot about ways and avenues that you can do different. And I think you got to step outside of the system somehow, which is super hard because you got to have the money, the flexibility, and be willing to. You have a family, so you got to be make sure you're taking care of your family if it doesn't go right, if you know what I'm saying. So I think I definitely think it's possible. And I think that, especially collectively, if we change the narrative about social work, not just the narrative, but like these ideas and myths around it, that we can create something new. But it's going to take a lot. I think that the organizations that represent social work are not in attunement with that, and they're in attunement with maintaining that status quo over and over and over again. But just to circle back just a little bit when talking about grad school, Natalia, one of the things that I thought that worked out very well at University of Hawaii at Manoa, where we were together, and then when I was teaching at HPU, was these in-person classes, and the cohorts had a real good sense of community. Like there were little cliques within them, but I still have good, like obviously with you and with several other Cache, LA, like I have really good relationships that are people that are my brothers, my sisters, my family, my siblings, my ohana. And there were a lot of opportunities to do that. There were beach days, and there was just like at the university, there's restaurants and places people could have a drink together or a coffee and all kinds of things like that. And even at HPU, like I'm still in good contact with a lot of those students that I taught at HPU. And I think, are you teaching online now? Is that your course? Is it on the online? Or are you in person?
Yeah, it's online.
Yeah. So I just think that we don't realize what we're losing or what we've lost post pandemic with so many programs and classes moving online. I don't think they offered any online classes at either HPU or Manoa when I was there teaching and as a grad student. And so I get that we have to move in that direction in some ways, but we really take for granted what we lose. And if, like you're saying, when you get done with it all, and then you feel like you don't have the means to take care of yourself because you're overwhelmed, you're carrying too much weight, all of the above, well, then you don't even have that previous sense of community and connection. I mean, it can be facilitated somewhat like we do the online talking circles where we create community, but like, it's not going to help for everyone. And there's no conversations after class. I shouldn't say there's none, but you don't have that time. Like probably you and I connected just like after class, hey, what's up? Let's go take a walk and talk about things. You know what I'm saying? And you just don't have that. And so as social work, we, as the bigger, the bigger picture of social work and especially education, we take that for granted. And so if we can't teach community, then we're going to be just like so I think a good comparison to that is when I'm walking around town over here and other places I've been as well, when I run into high school students, they don't say anything. They keep their head down and they keep walking. And I think that because those kids went through school during those pandemic era online, that they lost it. And sometimes you don't know what you lost until it's gone. Because I know it wasn't like that when I was younger. I'm not saying we were perfect by any means, but it wasn't like that. Like it just wasn't. And so it makes me really, really concerned about what our future is as individual social workers, but as a whole, if we don't have those communities and it's not modeled. And I know there's plenty of schools that have in-person stuff going on, but for the ones that don't, we don't know what we've lost. We just don't see it yet. And then I think we're going to look at it one day and be like, good God, what has happened to us? Social workers are the ones that are supposed to be community oriented, that are supposed to be to fill our cups up in that regard. And just one last point I had is that if you grew up in my generation or anywhere near that, then you would have saw like clinicians or therapists. You would have saw them on TV as these folks with a nice, beautiful mahogany desk in a spare wing in their house, and that they were very well respected and had a lot of prestige. Yeah, they were very prestigious and they were wealthy, it looked like. And that's just not the case. As you've described, Natalia, it's just not the case. And I think that we've just lost our way and we've just got to find a way to take that back somehow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for just going there and being honest. I'm going to take our puppy out to the bathroom, but I'll keep listening.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, Alicia. It was nice seeing you.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was teaching I'm teaching online right now. Definitely not my cup of tea. I did not want to do that, but it was the only option that they offered. They didn't have it because they wanted to offer it to people on the other islands. But yeah, it was hard. Like I know you've been teaching online, and I remember there being classes online. I don't know if they were offered at you, but I knew back then people took classes online, and I remember thinking I would never do that. I don't know if it was for you, but just that was like some people had taken, like in the world had taken class, and I remember I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to pay attention. I like having people and like having classes online. I mean, you're probably used to it because you've done it so much, but it's like, I can't feel people's energies. I can't tell. I tell the students, I don't know who's friends with who. Like in a classroom, you can see like this is a, like you said, like the little cliques, the little whoies, like this is a group, this is a group, this is us having the side conversations, this is who goes to breaks together, this is who's coming in late, this is who's telling you, oh, this so and so's coming in late today, so and so can't make it. You can, who's looking out for each other, who wants to be like, who's having the side conversations while you're talking. So it makes such a big difference. And even when I have like, I'm screen sharing, I can't even see everyone, So it just, I can't feel the energy. It just makes such a big, and sometimes I want to put them in breakout groups just so they can talk to each other, like, can you guys just please talk to each other? And we used to have barbecues and go to the beach, like you said, so that makes a difference. But just to add on about the school and the MSW program and the burnout, I will say that being around students for me in regards to burnout and like how they're all excited, like that gives me life. Like I love like the excitement and like the students who want to come in and do work. Like that feeds my soul. I'm like, yes, go you. Like you go do that. You know? You take your turn. It's your turn now. Like go for it. And I want to help you. Like I love mentoring and I love like helping you sharpen your toolbox, like all of that. Like I love that. So, when I'm feeling burnt out and I see like people who are excited and empathetic and want to learn, like I love
Yeah, it fills up
so
your cup, right? Fills
yeah,
it
so
up.
and all the students who want to go and study social work, like I love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you so much for your passion. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And David, like I said, I'm going to come back to your other question in a minute because we can talk a little deeper on it. But he says, I really wish I was able to take in person classes to be able to have that community. But if it weren't for online classes, there's no way I would have been able to go back to school. David lives in rural Alaska, like really rural Alaska. I do feel that your talking circles provide that sense of community. Other than your class, I don't get that feeling. And most of the people that are in here in this chat are my community in the talking circle. So for a while, I only taught online asynchronous classes, so no even Zoom option. And I kept hearing from students and felt myself that we needed community. And so I just created them optional and voluntary that you can come, and I'd host them once a week, sometimes twice a week. And wasn't sure if anybody would come, but every week a good group of students comes. Like I said, many of them are in here in the chat right now. And it's just been such a beautiful thing because sometimes we talk about the course and the courses and stuff like that, but the one thing that I always do as a talking point in the circle is share whatever's on your heart. I had an elder that taught me, a Yupik elder back in the day. She passed on now, but her name was Grandmother Rita Blumenstein, and she would say that you can't learn if you have a burden on your heart. And so I notice how many people are walking around with burdens, including myself. And so it really provides a good opportunity to lift those burdens and share and support each other. And my cup gets filled up with how much the students show up for each other and support each other. They celebrate with each other, but they also support each other when things are down. And so just much respect to all the students that have been coming to those and showing up for each other. I think it's very meaningful. And then I teach practice this semester, and it's a Zoom class. And I've tried it's same thing that you probably went through, like motivational interviewing, solution focused type stuff. And we do a lot of practice, but I tried really hard to figure out ways to like create community while we're practicing. And so I'll like do the circle, but then after you talk, I make people to start off, ask some open-ended questions or practice this. And my students have reflected to me as the semester's ending, just how much the community has meant to them. And so that's my encouragement to anybody out there that's teaching. Just try to find unique ways. And it's hard because sometimes you have like a curriculum where you have things that you have to cover. I think you mentioned this, Natalia. And so it can be hard. And I didn't figure it out for years, like once we went, post-pandemic online, or during the pandemic online, I really struggled with it because we had such a killer community. I was at HPU at the time, and then moving back to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, it was rough. I felt like alone. I felt like I'm over here teaching and I'm just, like you mentioned, I'm in my house alone and it's lonely. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I think when I think back to the MSW program, like one of the professors that really stood out and one of the things that she did really well was, modeling how to be a social worker in class, right? Like when you are facilitating those circles and you're having them ask those open-ended questions, right? You're modeling how to be a social worker. Those are the skills that they're going to take when they're being social workers with their clients, right? You're modeling how to facilitate a group and those kinds of things. So they're actually getting actual practice and
Yeah.
they're also being participants at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a professor together that I don't remember her name right offhand, but she was cool. Maybe this is the one you're talking about. I don't know, but she was cool in the sense that also that you can't do online because she would take us to these places of social work agencies and different things like that. And one of the most meaningful places that she took us was up in the Kalihi Valley, Ulaina, I think.
I think I missed that day. I heard it was really cool. I never went there.
Yeah, we went up there and they just work on the land. They try to get rid of the invasive species and use them to like build. They'll take out the bamboo, which many people don't know, but that's invasive or it's a foreign species here. It's not native to Hawaii, and they'll use it in a constructive way, like to build a fence around the taro so that the pigs don't get in there and things like that. But it's ran by elders, and so you go in there, and I think his name was Uncle. Geez, I'm not remembering. But anyways, we'd go walk around, and then he'd maybe teach you how to tie knots and different things like that, and whatnot. And then he'd just tell like Hawaiian legends and talk story with us, and it was very beautiful. And I was able to use that later on during my practicum. I was working with heroin addicts with an opioid maintenance program, and I took these individuals that were bodies were broken down. They're looked down on by society. Don't have much self esteem at all. And I took them up there and to talk story. Uncle Scotty, that was his name, Uncle Scotty, and doing and being up there, like they came alive. You know what I'm saying? Like they came alive, and they even though they're hunched over, because they just done so much damage to their bodies over the years. Like they wanted to work there, and they sat there and they listened to the stories, and it was just so beautiful. And so having those kind of opportunities, you miss out on those as well when it's just online. There's nowhere I can take the students. I can have a guest come to the Zoom or here on Riverside, but I can't take them out there and show them things like that. And so that was very beautiful.
Christian, is it hard for you? Like, because I know you used to run a facility. It was for the youth, right? Those were for substance use disorders, right?
There was some substance abuse, but it was mostly like conduct disorder and developmentally delayed. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought it was substance use disorder. Because,
I
like,
have
for
worked in
me,
substance abuse too. Yeah.
yeah, because for me, I feel like, I have my CSAC and that was like such a big part of what I did. And now it's not. And it's just like so hard, like not doing that. Do
Yeah.
you ever like miss that? Like, do you ever feel like, I don't know. It's just like,
That was like the best time of my life working at the
yeah.
treatment center. It was chaos, and there was a lot of like when I look back, there was a lot of ethical problems that I was not aware of at that point in my life. But I mean, I love those kids. Like I know you're not supposed to say stuff like that in social work, but I absolutely loved those kids, and I loved the work, and I just loved the interactions and the mutual respect. These kids that people said are like some of them beyond hope of return and things like that. I don't know. I loved it. It filled me up to the extreme. And if I had that opportunity to go back and supervise a place like that again, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
How do you like make peace within yourself of like letting that go and like not doing that if it was like something? Because I love working with like substance users and like working with the unhoused and stuff like that. And like, I can't do that anymore. Like because I stepped away from it, but it's like so hard. It's so heartbreaking for me not to work with that community. How do you, I know it's been a while for you, but like, do you remember having a hard time?
When I left there, it was the hardest decision of my entire life. I always had no upward mobility left there. But like I would say to myself, I'll leave after these kids are gone. I'll leave after these kids are gone. But there's always more kids that come in, and the place shut down. So I really didn't have a choice in the matter. But
Mm.
one thing that I would say that is similar to that is like I work with students now, And many of them come from paths like that have troubled substance abuse backgrounds. They've been homeless, they've been destitute, and that's why they're in social work. And those are oftentimes, I shouldn't say that's the students I identify with most or connect to, because I connect with lots of different kinds of students, but oftentimes those are the students that come to me and they say, hey, you're different, and that's what draws them to me. And that's what draws me to them in some extent. And so I think that what keeps me going now is that, I don't know the word I'm looking for, that sense of like that relational sense of, I may not know exactly what you've been through and how you feel, but I've been through some shit myself and I can feel for you. I don't think everybody's able to do that, at least to the same degree. And so that sense of shared pain, shared history of pain and things like that, that's what fills me up now with the students that I work with. But I've long desired to go back to something like that. And that's where I feel like my calling is. I'm an educator too. I'm a really good educator and I enjoy educating, but there's nothing like, working with somebody that everybody else has counted out. Even with when I was talking about
Hmm.
those heroin addicts that I worked with, I remember when I started over there, they had lots of groups that they ran. And there was this group of they called them Hamana over there, with students in Hawaiian, the Hamana. And they were like, these guys, these men and women, they can't come to groups anymore. They've been kicked out. And I was talking with my supervisor, who was super cool, this spiritual old Japanese woman. And I was like, I think that I can work with them. You should let me host a group. And that was like another one of the most meaningful. Those are the ones that I took up to Ho'ulu Aina. And we had a group every day. And so those Hamana that were unable to go to the other groups, they were the ones that showed up early and set up the chairs and set up the coffee and were ready to share. And I think that some social workers, hate to say it, they're not able to participate in that deep sense of listening and empathy and just letting somebody be who they are.
Mm.
And, like even
Mhm.
back to the treatment center, I'd have staff and supervisor, maybe not supervisor, but staff and like team leads and stuff that would like get on the kids for everything, like for saying the F word or something. And I'm like, well, geez, if all they said is fuck, then, and they were committing armed robberies a couple months ago, I think we're okay here. I don't think that that's our problem. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I'm digressing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Who are you working with now, Natalia? Like, who comes to you for therapy?
So what's interesting is, because that's what I wondered, right? Like, what's going to be my niche when I open my private practice? Because it's not going to be the clients I was working with in community mental health. I would say my clients in community mental health that I was working with were people who were living on the streets, active, chaotic substance users. I was working with in harm reduction for those who are listening. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified substance use counselor. And so harm reduction is like my thing. I love it so much. Oh my goodness. SMI, so like serious mental illness, dual diagnosis, and also like LGBTQ plus. So that's my thing. But because I'm private practice, I started private pay because I didn't want to deal with insurance. I don't know if most people who are listening are from Alaska, but Hawaii has like a pretty good Medicaid program. So a lot of people are on Medicaid. They call it Quest. So not a lot of private pay, or at least because of that's the community I mostly worked with. I don't have like a foot in the door of who wants to pay cash, even though I did get some cash pay. And so I eventually signed up with a couple of platforms. One of them is Rula. It's a website. It's kind of like a giant group practice. They credential you, and you use their like electronic health record where you do their notes, and they feed you clients. They've kind of taken over the Kaiser contract. So at least that's how I describe it. So basically, if you have Kaiser and I don't know if Alaska has Kaiser, but if you're looking for a therapist, because Kaiser is known for not having the best behavioral health services, check rula.com, and there's a bunch of therapists that accept Kaiser insurance. But anyway, so then I started seeing on Rula and they started feeding me a bunch of clients. But so surprisingly, when I started my private practice, my clients were all like trans, non-binary. And I was like, oh, wow, I guess this is going to be my niche. But what that told me is that this community needs therapy and they're having a hard time. I mean, there's a part of many times in my career, I have gotten this like resentment and anger as like, why me? Why am I the one providing the service, not someone else? Why don't like, I wish there was someone better than me providing trans services. I wish we had more trans providers, and that like imposter syndrome. I've been working with, trans clients for my whole, it's been, like I said, like 15 years or whatever, but I still get imposter syndrome. Or I wish we had more trans providers, or sometimes I would, help people get housed and that wasn't my role. And I'd be like, why am I the one doing this? And I'm sure a bunch of other social workers and you as well, right? We always do things that aren't in our role. But anyway, so that actually was a lot of my clients, which is great. And then I just started getting kind of like a flow of a lot of different types of clients. I started getting a lot of like college students, young women college students, which was interesting. I noticed that those are probably, I get a little bit overprotective of those. Probably not the best for me to work with because I get a little, I don't know, just a little I get overprotective of all my clients, but those in a different kind of way. And yeah, I just get all just whoever. Interestingly, with the trans, and I was just sharing this with my students because I just went over, the class that I'm teaching is inside the DSM. So I'm going over the DSM, and I just went over gender dysphoria, and I was explaining that some of the clients that I got were like partners or spouses of people who just came out as trans, like, their spouse just came to them and said that they're trans, or they think that they're trans. And so the spouse came to me and said, I don't know what to do with this information, or I don't know how to be supportive, or parents whose child they suspect or think or may be trans, and the parent doesn't know what to do with this information. Those were pretty, I guess, fun cases for me, cool cases. I enjoyed those. Yeah. But just kind of, yeah, it just sucks because, clients who are living on the streets, they're not going to be doing Zoom therapy. So I've lost access to all of those clients who are extremely psychotic, which I really like working with psychosis. They're not going to be meeting with me on Zoom. So I lost access to those.
What would you do,
Yeah.
Natalia, if you could be doing anything in social work? Do the miracle question on you. If you were, fast forward down the road and you were doing whatever you wanted and making good money, what would you be doing?
If I could do anything,
Anything in social work.
I so one of the things that I really like, I really liked what I was doing at the nonprofit that I work. I wouldn't be doing it exactly the way that I was, but there was a point where I was going to like the stabilization facilities. So when people would call 988 when they were in a mental health crisis, or when they were being released from like the psych unit for like suicide attempt or whatever, like a psychotic episode, they would go stabilize there, and I would meet with them, maybe do like a psych eval or just like check in. And then I would refer them to come meet with me for continued therapy. And one of the things that we would do that was nice, that we got I think the idea from the Harm Reduction Therapy Center in the Bay Area from our mentors, was drop-in. It was like drop-in therapy. So you could it was like day of therapy as opposed to scheduling in advance, because a lot of our clients would like no show or forget future appointments. So you just come on the day of and sign up for a time slot for that day. And so that was really nice. So it's kind of like build a relationship with someone while they're in that like stabilizing from crisis, and then ask them to come meet me for like that day of, and then just kind of hang out and build a relationship with that semi unhoused substance use. But what was really, so I really loved that, but I would be getting paid and working part-time. And what was really nice about the place I was working is that we had all these different programs so that we could offer different resources. So we could offer like food, hygiene, like safe using supplies, like all of these things. How we would have like ideally like housing, kind of like a one-stop shop if you needed like a drop-in center where you could get like all these services. In my ideal, almost what I was doing. Almost what I was doing.
And to me, that sounds amazing. I mean, I don't have exactly the same ideas, but very similar, and like especially the in general the idea behind it. And we have one thing, Natalia, is we have a collective of social workers, right? I'm about to have a PhD. You and Alicia got your LCSWs. Who knows? We might be able to manifest that and create that here on an island or on the islands or something like that. And so let's keep thinking about it. If we think about it, the more we think about it, the more it may come to fruition. I found that, when I focus on my problems, then which is even like every day, I still focus on my problems. But those problems seem to exacerbate themselves. And when I think about the solutions and try to manifest something, it really has really worked for me. So let's just plant that seed. You never know what we might be able to create, in these, couple of years down the road. And the world's always changing. So we might be able to do something, you know what I mean? And how would that, I think, when I think about it, if I were to answer the same question just right now, I would not, I have some specific things I could say, but I'd be more general, and I think, and I'd say I'd be working with you, Natalia, and we both be smiling, we both be thriving and happy. That's what I would want. I'd like to see me smiling, see you smiling and being happy and enjoying, full of joy in the work that we do. Be burdened by not having enough money or being overworked, things like that.
Right.
We'd be thriving. There's got to be a way, despite the cards being stacked against us. There's got to be a way to make it happen.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I loved my old job. It was just sucked that there just wasn't enough money, and it just sucked to go in and see all of my coworkers just also burnt out and underpaid. It's horrible. They were getting paid less than me, most of them, and I was struck.
Yeah.
It's just a shitty feeling to know that people are ugh, ugh.
So, both of our favorite jobs, we didn't get paid anything. And this was a while ago. This is like 20, maybe not quite 20 years ago, but 15 years ago or so, supervising that treatment center. For supervising a 100-bed facility, going through all this stuff, they paid me $15 an hour. And so it's probably gone up by now, but $15 an hour to supervise a whole facility. How are you supposed to really, create a family or something on that? And that's what either drives people away or drives them to the bar across the street after work. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep. That's what I did when I worked at the shelter. I went straight
That's what
to
I
the
did.
bar when I was done.
Well, speaking of substance abuse, and we've been talking about it a little bit, but David a long time ago asked, or he said he noticed that you had substance abuse counseling in your bio that I shared with him. And he says that's his ultimate goal. And he wants to know if you have any advice for when he gets started to go to work in that field.
Oh, that's kind of a broad question. Well, I'm a harm reductionist, so I am all about harm reduction. I don't know. Do you have a more? I don't know. I think I can see the chat too. Do you have a more like specific question? Are you trying to go like private practice? You want to go nonprofit? Or like treatment? I'm assuming this person's in Alaska. I don't know what the
Yeah.
services are like.
You
Do
want
you
to
have
come
a
on the screen, David? I know that might be a big ask, but you can if you want. He says he just wants to know what to expect, and that's a loaded question, David. Even from my perspective, it's I think that you should think about what kind of, like Natalia mentioned, harm reduction. You should think about what your philosophy, what you believe substance abuse should be about, because a lot of what I think something that's pushed me away from substance abuse is that because I've you know I have a PhD in substance abuse, meaning that I've been through it and been homeless and been through treatment and all that stuff. I know all about it. But what pushes me away is that abstinence only based 12-step programs. And I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm saying that it doesn't work for everyone. And so it's kind of pushed me away. And so I'd lean more towards, like Natalia's saying, I'm trying to reduce harm. I don't, if you are not abstinent in all ways, but yet you're reducing the harm that was there before, then that's a success. What do you think, Natalia?
Yeah. So, okay, let's see. Substance use. Well, it's just like many other programs, it's really underfunded. So, that can be really hard. A lot of the programs are funded through insurance, right? And as we know, insurance is a business. So it's a business that's about making money, not so much about providing you the best care. And so that can be really frustrating, at least from what I've seen in Hawaii. It's really hard because we see people who need certain care and insurance is not going to cover the care that's needed. So at least in Hawaii specifically, for example, someone can go into detox, which is 7 days. Insurance will pay for 7 days. And then the next step would be residential treatment for like let's say a month or two that insurance will pay. However, residential treatment has like a 1 month wait list. So you go into detox, but you can't get into residential treatment right away. So you're going to get discharged to like the street or back to your home and probably relapse. So there's like a gap in care. So that is really hard. It's like kind of like a puzzle piece, or you're trying to get into detox, but there's a wait list. So there's like all these hurdles. So anyway, there's like a lot of different challenges when it comes to treatment. And I used to work in outpatient. So a lot of people would think that like, when you go to rehab, it's like you go in for 28 days and then you come out and you're cured and you're all good. And there's some people who go in for 28 days and then they're good, but for the most part that's not the case. And treatment, actually, for you to like graduate or clinically discharge, you have to go through all these different levels of care. So that includes residential, and then maybe like IOP or day treatment, IOP, and aftercare. All the programs are different, but you kind of level down. So you might go 5 days a week, then 3 days a week. So anyway, so sometimes that can be difficult too, depending on if the client is going in voluntarily or if they're being court ordered to go. From my experience, most people who are in treatment are being court ordered to go. And that is a very different mindset than someone who wants to be there voluntarily. And so most of my clients were court ordered and they continued to relapse because that's just, part of the process. It's very difficult to, never use a substance again for many different reasons. And for me, it was really difficult for us to tell people this program is no longer working for you. You need to go find a different program. Goodbye. And just kind of kick them out. And for me to be working with someone and then just never see them again, it was really heartbreaking for me. And that's why I went into harm reduction, where I can continue working with clients despite them continuing to use. I prefer to do that. And so I don't know if you've heard of harm reduction, but harm reduction, kind of like Christian said, right? It's more about focusing on reducing harms associated with use, whether that's harms to like the larger society or the individual in general. Things like preventing overdose or preventing spread of like illness or preventing things like, I don't know, car accidents or things like that. But yeah, I mean, with substance use, it's really needed. And, it's something I thought I could never get into. And then I ended up in it and I really enjoyed it. And I enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. And David said in the chat that he's been through it all as well, and that he used to think that methadone, or I think it's supposed to say Suboxone maybe, weren't considered sober, but after taking classes, it changed my thoughts on the subject. I don't think it's considered sober, David, but more of a maintenance program. And I would say that those maintenance programs can be very helpful. What I see as the negative side of that is that those clinics, those maintenance clinics, methadone clinics, whatever you're calling them, they can't exist if they get everyone off of the opioids. If everyone got clean, they wouldn't have a business anymore. And that kind of shows, at least in my experience. There were a lot of good people that worked in there, but there's just something that's missing. And so I don't know that I would ever want to do that full time or anything in a maintenance clinic. But I did enjoy, like I said, working with the folks that were there. And, you know, you you were talking about how it was hard to have people just disappear, Natalia. When I finished up my MSW, my practicum, I was sad to leave, and we left Hawaii at that time because we were having a baby and we were worried about finances and stuff like that. And I was really sad to leave them. And when I came back a few years later, I was so excited to see some of them. And so I went over to talk to my old practicum supervisor, and she's told me some really negative stories about what had happened to some of them, and it made me sad. And then the only one I saw, two of them on the streets, and one of them had just been in and out of jail, and he was just miserable and still in, downtown where HPU used to be, over by Walmart downtown. And, he was looking for, some heroin. And then I saw the other one, a guy I really liked, that part of that group that I mentioned earlier. And I used in the Marco Polo building, we had that store in the bottom of the building. And I saw him going in there, and he was just like, he was already his body was abused, but like he was just as destitute as you can be, like barely able to walk, sores all over himself. And he remembered me, but barely. And it just made me sad, like the sad things that you see. And so that's another thing in working with these kind of populations is how do you deal with and cope with it when you essentially fall in love with someone. So that's the way I look at it. When you fall in love with them and you care about them, and then it makes me sad right now. It's my eyes are watering up thinking of like picturing him in my mind. And it's hard work. You got to be a special person to be able to, to almost to tolerate them at first when you're working with them because it can be difficult, but to fall in love with them and then hear about them dying or being sick or going to jail or all kinds of doing bad things themselves. And so it's real hard work for sure.
Yeah, it's such an honor to work with people who use substances or in recovery, like, and it's such a stigmatized population, right? Like people just think and say the most horrible things about people who use substances or have substance use disorders, and when we see them when they're in treatment, we see them kind of come back to life and glow and all of those things. And yeah, when we're used to when we meet them when they're in recovery and then we see them when they're back on the streets, it can be really shocking. And it can be that kind of like, oh my goodness, I just want to hug you and oh my goodness, that can be really hard and be like, wow, like this is actually what your life was like before we met. And this is what your life was like. Maybe this is how you might die if you don't end up back in recovery. And that's actually one of the hard things about reality sometimes about harm reduction is that we get to work with people until the reality is we get to work with people who may die on the streets. And we get to have that honor to still maintain that relationship with them until, right? Like that man that you saw at the bottom, at the store, he might be working with somebody, right? Engaged in some sort of like outreach workers. And so just to know that like there are people who still get to honor him and treat him with dignity. And that's why, as opposed to the people who kicked him out from the treatment center. And that's why I love harm reduction is that I got to still be that person that still got to say, hello, how are you? Did you eat today? How was your, and that's why I love harm reduction so much, and people talk about enabling whatever. And it's like, no, like, I still honor you and I'm still going to be here for you. And of course I want you to go to treatment, and I want you to rebuild relationships with your family. But the truth is that like, I can't force you to do that and I'm still going to honor you. And it's really hard because people die like that and maybe they have funerals for these clients and maybe they don't, and family members don't know that they were engaged in services with us. They don't know how much they meant to us. It's like I wish I could just like journal about them and write like books about them, but in a way it's like not appropriate because of confidentiality and stuff. But sometimes I want to, I just want to write like a story about how much like sunshine this person brought to our life. I was just thinking about this one client and like, or this other client who had no teeth. I had this client with no teeth and he was so sweet. He had no teeth. When my baby was born, every time he smiled at me, he reminded me of my client with no teeth. Every time I was like, oh, there's my client, so and so. I would just see his face. He was an older man with it was so funny, but okay, or not funny maybe, but yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I worked in the needle exchange program and I would encourage when I would have student interns to come do that so that they could see people and really see what it's like for them to be working sort of like at their lowest point of their life and get that experience cuz they're still humans too and they still deserve that. But that's why I really like the harm reduction, and it's hard. Sometimes we even see like clients on the news and that they die and we like can't tell anybody, right? Because it would be breaking confidentiality. You can't be like, oh, Alicia, that was my client from rehab, right? Like we can't say that. So that's really hard, but I don't know, there needs to be like a way to they do have memorials sometimes for like unhoused clients who died in 2025 at like a certain church. I don't know if they do that on Big Island, but I know on Oahu they do. At the agency I had, they would have and this is pretty rare. I don't know of other places that they do this, but they would have a memorial for clients who died. At the end of the year, they would have a memorial for clients who died that year for all of us to like say something about that client. Um, which is pretty special, but most places don't do that.
Yeah, that does sound beautiful. And when you were talking a minute ago, you just gave me gave me the chills. You gave me goosebumps in the sense when you were saying that it was an honor to work with them. It's an honor to work with them. It's exactly how I feel. Like the kids that I used to work with, the heroin addicts, whatever, like it just was truly an honor. And I like truly felt honored that I had that opportunity to get to know them and to see a deeper side of them, a more human side of them than other folks see. And what an honor that is, you know what I'm saying? And so I just want to say thank you for sharing that perspective. And I just align with you so much on that. And I think that's what draws me back to wanting to be there is for that, if you know what I mean. Alicia and I walked up to there's a little pub up here, and we just walked up there and had some food last Saturday. We were coming out, there were two homeless, a man and a woman, homeless folks, just sitting in the parking lot, smoking rolled cigarettes and talking. And I was like, I make Alicia get out of her comfort zone a little bit sometimes. And I was like, let's go talk to them. And I sat down, and usually I don't smoke, and I haven't smoked in a long time. I sat down and I just asked them if I could have one of their a rolled cigarette just to kind of break bread with them in a sense, and just had the most beautiful conversation with them. One guy's like schizophrenic and paranoid, but like talking to him, you know, you see that there's something deeper there, and not everything that he's paranoid about is unrealistic. If that makes sense. In some ways, he made more sense than the average person that I meet. And the other woman, she was drunk, but she was like just so friendly in her laugh and things like that. And it was just, again, I felt like honored that I got to sit there down in a circle on the blacktop, you know, the driveway of the pub, and talk story with them for a minute. It was just an honor and a pleasure. And
Hmm.
David says, I see people that I went to treatment with 15 years ago. Sorry, it just moved 15 years ago that have now gone back out. And it's tough to watch. I don't know how many have passed since I got out of treatment. I just want to help people that are in the boat that I was 15 years ago. I think having that lived experience can help people so much. I think that's beautiful too, David. And I just admire you and where you're coming from, where you come from, and what you're trying to do, and use that experience that you had to benefit the world and other individuals. It's just admirable quality. And it reminds me of when I went to treatment so long ago, like 20 plus years ago now, I think. But I remember the intake dude, Mike, he took me in to the filing room or whatever, I don't know, the office room. And he pulled out this filing cabinet with all these pictures. And he's like, you see all these? This is everybody that came in here for meth. You know how many of them are doing well now? And he used that. He's not fucking very many. And he's like, so, you know, I think that you're going to do it, but just want you to know the odds are stacked against you. And in my mind, as I went through treatment I was there for 28 days, and then, you know, did some things after too. But I was telling myself as I made the relationships, because you make a lot of good relationships when you get in some kind of cohort like that. And I was like, that's not going to be the way with us. We're all going to do well, and we're all going to succeed and survive. And the truth is that I don't know any of those people anymore. I've tried to look a few of them up that I was close to. Jails, institutions, or death is the only conclusion that I can come to. And so it's hard. So I don't know what I was trying to get at with that, but it's hard. And we need people like you, David. We need people like you, Natalia. We need us to be out there and, you know, share humanity with them.
Yeah, David, I would say I think it's just really important to remember that everyone is like on their own journey. And one of the things I would always tell like students or when I do presentations is like just to remember that, you know, when you're working with people, you know, the end of their journey, it's, I say it's like their business, not ours, right? We're not there to like save them. We're just there as like a resource, right? Social workers, like we're a resource, we're a tool, or like I say, we're kind of like a GPS, right? Like we just show the way. We're not there to like force them. We're not there to like work harder than them. Like we're not we don't want to be like at the end of the day, like their outcome is their business. It's not ours, right? So they get to choose where they end up in life. Because sometimes we can get really invested and that's what can, you know, we don't want to be up at night thinking about them or being, you know, it's their life. You know, I can share two stories that I are really meaningful to me. It's actually two mothers who thanked me, two different settings. One was at a treatment graduation. I was it was one of my clients that I had bumped heads with a few times. And this client had actually one time, well, I won't share the details of this because I don't have their permission, but I did go to their graduation. It was after I left but so my client, I went to their graduation. Their mom was there. They introduced me to their mother, and their mother just gave me a huge hug and like broke into tears and like thanked me at their graduation. I assume it was the first time they were graduating treatment. This was someone who used to be like unhoused, pretty like psychotic on the street. So that was like really moving, just got me like really choked up. And so that's like a treatment story. And then I had another mother when I was working syringe exchange, the needle exchange program. So on Oahu, the needle exchange program, we don't have like it's not out of a building, it's out of a van that's parked in Chinatown. So it's like a van with the van door is open and people come exchange their used needles out of there. And it was a mom that stopped by the van and she told us that she couldn't find her son, she hadn't talked to her son in who knows how long, but she knew that her son was accessing services at the van, and she just kind of came to check out the van. And like at that point you don't know what the mom's going to say, right? But she like got choked up and you could see like her tears were starting to come out, and she just said like thank you to us because she knew that like her son was engaging with us to access, it's a form of healthcare when you're engaging in a needle exchange. And so she also got choked up to say thank you to us. And so those are two really beautiful stories that stand out in my memory as someone engaged in substance use services, of mothers thanking me in tears.
Those are beautiful stories. And I think I won't share their stories right now, but some of my most beautiful experiences, especially working back with the kids, was their families being thankful. And, because the kids would talk about who had helped them. And it was just I still have relationships with some of them today. So very, very meaningful. We're running out of time. So if you're in the chat and you have a last minute question or a burning desire, feel free to pop it in. I wanted to ask you, Natalia, was there anything you wanted to talk about that we hadn't gotten to?
Not that I can think of.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Aaliyah was going to come and ask you a question, but she chickened out. She was scared,
No.
my 5-year-old. And she wanted to ask you if becoming a mother changed your outlook or the way that you think about social work.
My goodness. About social work? Becoming a mother really changed me. Holy smokes. But how did it change my outlook on social work? Well, it made me realize that I absolutely cannot work with children. Like any sort of that breaks my heart way too much. And I'm just trying, and it made me realize that I need to get my work life balance down better. I need to give my kid more. But it's like 5 years later and I'm still working on it.
Me too. Me too.
And I want to get my kid involved, and I know you do. You two do a great job. So I went to it was August 31st is Overdose Awareness Day, and they do like sign waving at the Capitol. Like I'm a little bit upset because it's not very many people show up, and I wish there was more people that showed up. But I like brought my son, and I'm like in the preschool mom group chat where we like set up like kid dates, and I'm like, anyone want to come sign wave at the state capitol for Overdose Awareness Day? No one answered me. Is that a preschool mommy and kid date?
Hey, it can be. I'm a big believer in incorporating children into the things that we do. And I think that I think the way our culture is trending, sometimes we think that we'd have to keep them safe in all circumstances. I mean, obviously, we want to keep our kids safe. I guess maybe that's not the right way to say it, but maybe we're overprotective and it prevents them from getting the experiences that would enrich and benefit their lives. I think about that all the time in the sense of my kids and adversity and things like that, because I had so much adversity as a youth and as a young adult and things like that. And not saying everybody goes through adversity, but they don't go through that same adversity that I went through in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of like, a double-edged sword, because in some ways, those trials that I went through, the hard times that I went through, were really hard, and they caused me a lot of grief and a lot of pain in my life. But on the other hand, it helped shape me who I am today. And so I often think about like, how can I, not overprotect my kids to the point that they don't experience that sense of adversity that prevents them from being able to empathize with those that do go through adversity. And it's a hard thing to figure out what's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? It's hard, but I try to they listen to what I'm doing. You know, I could be doing a podcast, and seriously, I'll be doing a podcast. Like I interviewed this abolitionist social worker one time, Alan Detlef, and my kids were playing a game. You know, they like role play and all that stuff. And they're like talking about Alan Detlef. I'm like, how the hell you know about Alan Detlef? It's because they listened to my conversation, but they'll repeat all kinds of things that I say. And I've tried my best to like take them to conferences and things where I can. And I think that they love it. You know, I went and did a talking circle at the NASW Alaska conference this year and a couple of years ago. One time Zaid went with me, and this last time Naya went with me, and they both participated in the talking circle, and it was meaningful for them and for the other people that were there. It was very meaningful, and so, matter of fact, we stayed in an Airbnb with students, and Naya got to hang out with all my students. And I remember she told me, "I just really love your social workers, Dad." I thought that was
Yeah, your kids are so great. You're such great parents.
the same to you. We all do the best that I can, you know. David says, I think talking to them about things like substance abuse or mental health is a good thing. I've let them know my story and others in the family. That way, if they ever go through it themselves, they know they're not alone, right? And there's not the stigma of talking to us. If my kids are thinking about something, about whether it's using something or they've used something and they need to talk to somebody, sure as hell want them to talk to me. And it doesn't do any good if they're afraid that I'm going to get pissed off at them about it. I want it to be open and yeah, but it's hard. Being a parent is hard. There's no blueprint for it at all. It's hard work. So we just got to do the best that we can with what we got at the time. Well, I got to wrap things up, Natalia. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I felt like I've learned a lot from you, a little bit more about you. And I just feel like we had a real human conversation. And I hope that resonated with all of you in the audience and those that listen afterwards. It's very meaningful for me to talk to you, and I really hope that you and Tui and Mosese can come out and see your Ohana over here on the Big Island. You know we got space for you, and for sure we'll get over to Oahu, find a dog sitter at some point or a dog friendly hotel or something. I don't know. I don't know if Waikiki is the best place for a dog, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know about the flying. I don't know if you're allowed to fly with a dog because you're supposed to like quarantine. I don't know. Anyway,
Not
yeah,
inter
thank you.
island though.
Oh, okay, that's good. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad my microphone was working.
Yeah.
And yeah, miss you guys. I'm so glad I saw Alicia and Aaliyah and that they came recently.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're back in Hawaii.
We'll see you soon, one way or another. I'm sure of it. We're a lot closer than we were a little while ago. And I just had
Yeah.
two thoughts on my mind, real quick, from the chat that I didn't answer. And one was Monica had said that she was thinking about moving out of state for MSW to get that in person experience. And, I don't know all of your situation, Monica, what that means to have to move out of state. But if you can go and get that experience, I highly recommend it because it was so meaningful for me. Like I said, I wouldn't know Natalia if it wasn't for that. I have my friend LA that was in our program that's coming over here to share Thanksgiving with his daughter and granddaughter and the community that's creating for us. And the other thing was David about substance abuse. If you haven't read these or looked into it, I highly recommend Dr. Gabor Mate. He had in the realm of hungry ghosts, close encounters with addiction. But even more so, even though it only has a little blurb on substance abuse or a couple chapters, it's just a fantastic book for context on how folks get into, you know, become deprived of the things that they need and disconnected. And that's The Myth of Normal by Dr. Gabor Mate. So, and if you want, I'd be happy to send you a copy, David. So let me know about that. Yeah, I'll send it to you, David. I'll send you the name and I'll send you a copy if you want. But back to you, Natalia. Just again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I love you. I love your family. Tell my brother Tui I said hello. Take care of Mosese for us. And let's get everybody together sometime soon. And keep being you, and you'll work your way out of this. And we're going to be smiling, doing something that we love on a grander scale at some point. I believe it.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you guys. Appreciate it. Hope to see you
Thanks,
soon.
yeah. Thanks to everybody in the audience. We appreciate you too. All right. Peace, everyone. Have a good day.